This video is for your 11-2 work together. First thing that I want to show you is when you go into your 11-2 section, you are going to see that there are some activity videos and activity quizzes. These I am not assigning to you to be graded. However, they are great practice for you. So if you have the time, if you need some extra practice, I would say it might be worth checking those out. But I'm going to go into my 11-2 and my 11-2 work together. So we have two steps. Our first step, it says journalize the transactions for client interiors during December of the current year. We're going to use page 12 of the general journal. Source documents are abbreviated. So we have 4 transactions that we're going to record. June 4th, it says that we granted credit to Keller Associates for merchandise returned $245 plus sales tax $14.70 from S645 for a total of $259.70, credit memorandum 28. So I'm going to start with my date, June 4th. And then first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to debit my sales, returns, and allowances. Now, what helps me to remember that I'm going to debit sales, returns, and allowances is that when we make a sale, we credit sales. So I'm doing the opposite then. I'm going to debit my sales, returns, and allowances. As for my document number, they do give us 2 document numbers, but this document they're referring to is just when we had our sales invoice. So that's when Keller Associates bought that merchandise from us. We are using this source document to record that return. So CM28. I'm going to debit sales, returns, and allowances for the amount of the sales that was returned. So that's going to be this number here, that 245. That was the merchandise that was returned. Next, I'm going to make a debit to my sales tax payable. Remember, I want to get rid of that sales tax so that I'm not paying sales tax for something that was returned to us. So that's going to be this smaller number here, $14.70. Okay, and then I need to credit my accounts receivable / Keller Associates. So they do not owe us as much money anymore, and I'm going to be crediting that for the total amount, that $259.70. So my accounts receivable, that credit should be the largest number. My sales, returns, and allowances is probably going to be the second largest number, and then that sales tax payable will be the smallest number. Okay, June 9th, it says that I learned a sale on account to Ashton and Lindsay LLP was incorrectly charged to the account of Abraham Corporation, 623, memorandum number 61. So starting with my date of the 9th, and on this, this was the account, so this customer here was the one that we were supposed to charge. However, we charged Abraham Corporation on accident. So what we're going to do is we are going to debit the correct account. Source document is M61. I'm going to debit the correct account for 623. And then I'm going to credit the incorrect account, and crediting that incorrect account will get rid of that initial incorrect debit. The 12th, I granted credit to Lambert Schools for damaged merchandise, 206, no sales tax, from S633, credit memorandum 28. So start with the date. This is going to look just like this June 4th transaction. However, we don't have any sales tax here. They are a school, and so that looks like they don't pay any sales tax. So we are simply going to debit sales, returns, and allowances. That credit memorandum is our source document, so CM29. We're going to debit for that full amount of 206. And then we're going to credit accounts receivable / Lambert Schools for 206. Last transaction on the 26th found that a sale on account to Keller Associates was incorrectly charged to the account of Carson Properties 598, memorandum number 62. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in that date of the 26th, and then I'm going to debit the correct account first. So that would be Keller Associates is who it should have been debited to. And memorandum 62 and a debit of 598. And then I'm going to credit the incorrect account. So we incorrectly charged Carson Properties. So I'm going to get rid of that incorrect debit with a credit now. Okay, my transactions are done then. So I'm going to grade step 1. And next step. Now I'm going to be posting. It says post each general journal entry to the accounts receivable and general ledgers. Entries that require more than one posting reference in a single journal line must be separated by a slash with no spaces. So what we really should be doing is we should be posting to the accounts receivable ledger first. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to find my customers first. So I'm going to just go line by line. Here's my first customer, that Keller Associates. So I'm going to start by putting that slash. It's going to be red, but we'll fix it later. So I'm going down to Keller Associates. I'm going to put in the date of the 4th. My post reference is going to be G12 for General Journal, page 12. And then I'm looking here, I have a credit of 259.7. I'm going to then find my new balance. I have a debit. Oops. I have a debit and then a credit. So that means that I'm going to be subtracting. My new balance that I get then is 1,456.7. My account number 140 is going to go back up behind that slash. Now it's going to stay red. I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to go to the next line where I see another customer. So here's that Ashton and Lindsay LLP. The date is the 9th. Post reference is G12. And this time I have a debit of 623. I have a debit and a debit, so I am adding. My new balance is 1,307.25. Account number 120 will go back up. I don't have any slashes here because I don't have an accounts receivable in this transaction. Next line is another customer, so I'm going to Abraham Corporation. The date is the 9th. G12. I'm going to credit that account for 623. I have a debit and a credit, so I'm going to be subtracting. My new balance is 1,026.5. Account number 110 will go back up. Next one I see is Lambert Schools. Here I'm going to start with that slash. I'm going to go to Lambert Schools. The date is the 12th. Post reference G12. I have a credit of 206, a debit and a credit, so I'm going to be subtracting. My new balance is 3,284. Account number 150 will go up behind that slash. Again, that's going to be red that we will fix later. The last two customers I have, Keller Associates, the 26th, G12, and I'm going to debit their account for 598. I have a debit and a debit, so I'm going to add. My new balance is 2,054.7. My account 140 will go back up. And last one in my accounts receivable ledger is to Carson Properties, the 26th, G12, and I have a credit of 598. I'm going to be subtracting. My new balance is 1,049.6. 130 goes back up. I've posted to my accounts receivable ledger, so now I'm going to post to my general ledger. So I'm going to start back up at line 1, and the first account that I'm going to post to is my sales, returns, and allowances. The date is the 4th. Still on G12. I have a debit of $245. I have a debit and a debit, so I'm adding. My new balance is $2,732.6. Account 4130 will go back up. Next, I'm posting to sales tax payable. The date is the 4th, G12. I have a debit of $1470. I have a credit and a debit, so I'm going to subtract. I have a credit balance then of $633.4, and my account number 2120 goes back up. Next one then is going to go to my accounts receivable. So the 4th, G12, and I'm going to credit that account for $259.7. I have a debit and a credit, so I'm going to subtract. My new balance is a debit balance of $8,928.05. Account number 1130 is going to go in front of that slash then. And then we should have no longer red. Okay, then I'm jumping down because these two are good. So I'm jumping down to my sales, returns, and allowances. The date is the 12th, G12, and I have a debit of $206. A debit and a debit I'm going to add. My new balance then is a debit balance of $2,938.6. Account number 4130 goes back up. And then I need to post to my accounts receivable for the 12th, G12, and I have a credit of $206. A debit and a credit means I'm subtracting. My new balance is a debit balance of $8,722.05, and account number 1130 will go back up in front of that slash. Okay, so now I see that my post reference column is completely filled in, so that tells me that I am done posting that journal page. So I'm going to go back down and say grade final step. Everything looks good. So save and continue. You can now complete the 11-2 on your own.